හදේලකු අයති රැයක් නිදි මරා සරාගි ලවන් වෙහෙසිලා යලිත් වෙන තුරා සුරංගි නිදිමි මග ලවන් වෙහෙසිලා යලිත් වෙන තුරා සුරංගි නිදිමි මග බලා පිටත් සඳ උදාවේ රැයක් පැමිණිලා සිහිනුවට යාවී සුරඹ මා සොයාවී සුරංගනාවක් හෙමින් ඇවිල්ලා හදේලකු අයති සුරංගනාවක් හෙමින් ඇවිල්ලා හදේලකු අයති සුරංගනාවක් හෙමින් ඇවිල්ලා හදේලකු අයති.
Have any one of you, other than anyone who has attended one of my presentations, seen a person when invited to speak, instead of speaking, pick up a guitar and sing? I trust this is the first time that you experience something like this. When a person is invited to deliver a presentation, without any invitation, without speaking a single word, he picks up a guitar and begins to sing. I did this very much deliberately, thinking that this finds an entry into the theme that we saw on the background a few minutes ago about entrepreneurship. The reasonable man adapts himself to the conditions that surround him. The unreasonable man try to adjust the conditions that surround him to suit himself. All progress in the world depends on the unreasonable man. So remember that it is very unreasonable to take you by surprise by starting with a song when I'm supposed to speak. But I'm just giving you a glimpse of entrepreneurship at its finest. If you try to close your eyes for a while and try to catch a glimpse of the feelings that you may come across, if you try to perform the same act that I performed a while ago in front of you, and try to catch a glimpse of the feelings that you may come across. Try to put yourself in my shoes. I know the feelings. The fear of being laughed at, the fear of being ridiculed, the fear of being a misfit, fear of being rejected. These are the feelings that you come across. But I will tell you, these are the very feelings that will stall the progress of your life. It is for these very fears that we do not get into the next level in our lives. So if you have the guts and the nerve to defy convention and push through with your ideas, having confidence in the ideas that you possess, that are original, that is coming from you, I think that is once again you are getting to the finest area of entrepreneurship. 50 years ago, there was a medical opinion that if a man ran a mile under 4 minutes, that he wouldn't be in the land of living. The medical reasoning was that the human lungs did not have the capacity to produce the necessary oxygen for a man to perform such act. But there was this guy 50 years ago who defied this medical opinion, who did not care about this medical opinion. And he ran a mile under 4 minutes. But he did not die as the doctors predicted. He was very much in the land of living. But that is not the point. Once he had established this, within the next 8 months, there were 12 others who ran a mile under 4 minutes. So most of the barriers that we face, fear in crossing, most of these fears are psychological. But there are people, as I told you, who do not dare care about the convention, who has the gut and the nerve to defy nomenclature, who has the gut and the nerve not to take things as given. And these are the people who push the horizons of their respective fields and become pioneers in the respective fields that they are in, be it sports, business, or whatever they are in. You know the event high jump? Everyone knows the event high jump in athletics. You clear the horizontal bar. Today you clear it head first. That is the technique. When you clear the high jump, you clear it head first. But in the 1970s, it was leg first. But one Mr. Fosbury from USA tried to use the technique that is used today, that is head first technique in the 70s. And he was disqualified, calling it a dangerous technique. But today, not only the world accepted technique to clear the horizontal bar of the high jump is head first, but it is being named after Mr. Fosbury. So this is what happens when you try to embark on something new. First, there will be resistance, and you have to have guts to withstand that defiance that is coming your way when you try to push forward with an innovative idea. Now, my company, I'm into manufacturing. I manufacture the impact sensor for the automobile airbag. And all the brands in the world, most of the brands, I should say, all the brands in Japan, Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, Mazda, you name it. All the brands in Japan are using what I manufacture few kilometers away in Biagama. My factory is in Biagama. It just took me 20 minutes to get here. So, and in Europe, Volvo, Saab, Aston Martin, BMW, all these vehicles are using what I manufacture right here. And then in USA, General Motors, Ford and Chrysler. The uniqueness, now the product, once again I'll tell you, that is called the impact sensor. That is the sensor which would recognize the impact, if there is an impact, and give the signal to the airbag to come out. And the uniqueness of this product is its quality requirement. The quality requirement is called 1 ppm quality. 1 part per million is the defect tolerance rate. Understandably, this is a product that cannot fail. Because if your CD player in your vehicle is out of order, you will have the occasion to get it rectified, get it repaired. But if for the impact airbag does not come out, you may not have the occasion to get it rectified. So that is why this stringent quality is in place. Now, those of you who have some flair for quality, you know there's a measurement, 6 sigma, to measure quality. 6 sigma equals 0 defects, in theory. But in fact, 6 sigma calculation will tolerate 6 defects per million, if you do the calculation. So what is required of me is 1 ppm, which means even 0 defects is not tolerated. So the uniqueness of the business that I'm in is, this is the first time that Sri Lanka has entered the international market with a 1 ppm quality product. That is the uniqueness. And I have been in this business for the past 12 years. Hitting success once is sometimes easy, but sustaining it is the difficult part. I have sustained this for the past 12 years, because if there are any defects, and if an airbag does not go out for an accident, for the impact, tomorrow I'm out of my business. So I have to maintain this quality. And when I embarked on this, I was told by many, don't try to do this in Sri Lanka. With the existing work ethic of this country, that it would not be possible to achieve this high level of quality. That is what I was told. But looking at all the great monuments built by our ancestors and the precision work that they had undertaken almost 2,000 years ago, I was convinced to the contrary. I thought that this DNA must be somewhere in our people. It was just a matter of providing them the right leadership to rekindle this DNA. And I have been right, and here I am. Last year, the turnover of my company was 38 million US dollars. And at the CNCI Awards, I was recognized to be among the top 10, extra large category, top 10 companies in the country. So how did I race from zero after 12 years to become one of the top 10 companies in this country? I studied at St. Anthony's College, Kandy, as it was told in my introduction. And soon after my O-level exams, I received a scholarship to go to Japan. But if I say that I received a scholarship to go to Japan, it is incorrect. I had a choice. I was given a few countries which I had the occasion to select, option of selecting. There was England was there, USA, New Zealand, Australia, and Japan. 5 countries were there. I selected Japan for 2 reasons. Firstly, at that age, I was very fond of martial arts. You know, karate, kung fu, and this kind of thing. So that was the first reason that I wanted to select Japan, because I thought by going to Japan, I can pursue my interest in martial arts. Secondly, now I thought if I go to USA, Australia, or New Zealand, of course I will be brushing up my English. But then to brush up your English, there is a background in Sri Lanka as well. But if I go to Japan, I will be picking up another language. For those 2 reasons, I selected Japan. It was a scholarship awarded by an organization called American Field Service. It's a cultural exchange program, and you have to go there and stay with a Japanese family for 1 year, and you have to attend school there. So now, it was part of this scholarship that every other weekend, they took me to visit all the big conglomerates in Japan. You name it, Canon Corporation, Mitsubishi, Honda, Matsushita Denki, which is known as National Panasonic in this part of the world. And the present business idea was conceived in my mind in one of these visits when I visited Toyota. I was just 16 at that time. And when I visited Toyota, the production lines ran into some kilometers. So the person who was explaining the process to me was taking me in a battery-operated silent car, which was running through the process, the kind of vehicles that you get in the airports. So while we were moving forward, I hardly saw many people. In a factory of that magnitude in my own country, I would have seen at least 3,000 to 4,000 people by then. But I hardly saw, of course, there were people here and there. So out of inquisitiveness, I queried from the person who was explaining the process to me, is it a holiday at Toyota today? He said, no, it is not a holiday. We have automated most of our systems. Having said that, we moved further, and I could see through a glass that there were about 400 people cramped in. Say it was maybe 1/4 of this room. There were about 400 people cramped in doing something swiftly. So out of inquisitiveness, I said, what are they doing? And they said, the person who was explaining the process told me, he's doing the impact sensor for the airbag. And I said, while ago you told me that all the processes are automated. So why aren't you automating this process? Then he told me, this is a process that we cannot automate. This is a process that we cannot automate. So then, in fact, I told him, if this is a labor-intensive product, why not do this product in a country where labor is abundant and more cost-effective? Then he said that a vehicle comes into being by about 17,000 components coming together, a standard vehicle. If it is a luxury vehicle, twice as that. That is about 34,000 components coming together. Certain components, of course, we do outsource to other countries. But there are components that we call critical components. That is so bonded with the brand name, and we never impart to other countries these critical parts. So what we do here is a critical part, and therefore we do not intending imparting it to any other country. So a business idea was conceived and a complete negative answer was given. But at the end of my tour, I requested for a few samples of what they were doing. He told me it was some security devices, sensors for airbags. I requested a few samples. I know that Toyota will be reluctant or rather not give any samples to a visitor who's visiting their factory. But maybe for two reasons. Now through this scholarship, I was an invitee of their government. And of course, then I was a student on a study tour. Maybe for those two reasons, he was kind enough to put in a small package. And at the end of my tour, he gave me 3 samples. And with these 3 samples, after completing my 1 year Japan, now I come back to Sri Lanka and I sit my advanced level exam. During my time, it was 4 subjects. I did Sinhala, political science, logic and economics. These were the 4 subjects. Now, once doing my advanced level exam, during my time, it takes at least 6 months to get your results. When you sit your exam in August, you get your results somewhere in January or February next year. So once again, I had some time, some space. Now, not wanting to be a vagabond, being young, I once again went to Japan. But this time on my own. It was not on a scholarship. Since I have spent 1 year there, I have picked up the language by that time. I went to Japan. I had 2 engagements. One was I worked for NHK Radio, although they call it NHK Radio, that is their national television. I was working for NHK Radio as a Japanese English and vice versa, a translator, during daytime. And in the night, I was a lobby artist at a hotel called Nivu Otani in Tokyo. That's a 5-star hotel. I was playing the guitar. I was mostly playing Simon and Garfunkel on my guitar. It's very easy to be a lobby artist because no one would listen to you, right? Only the passers-by just will give you a glance, and that's all. So these were the 2 engagements. And one fine day, I received a call from my father. And he told me, Puta, advanced level pratibala outuna, Puta exam failed. Right? I had a F for Sinhala. F for Sinhala, other 3 subjects I had scraped through, passed. Now I gave it a thought. Now what happened? Because when something happens, you have to analyze. At that age, I mean, you don't do analysis of that kind when you are doing advanced level. But thinking of it now, I took a very strategic decision at that time. At that age, of course, I didn't know even the word strategy. But thinking of it now, it's one of the best decisions that I have taken in my life. I thought that now I had a F for Sinhala. I have failed in my Sinhala, but I gave my best shot. I did study hard. But now I thought even if I make further effort, I might have a S or a C for Sinhala. And that is not going to bring much color or different to the existing result, overall result. So I thought of changing the subject. As I told you, after being in Japan for 1 year, I have picked up my Japanese. So I queried whether I could offer Japanese as a subject for advanced level. And the answer was yes. And then I went to the Japanese embassy, and they were kind enough to give me the past papers that they present here at the advanced level. And I was surprised when I went through the advanced level papers, it was the grade 1 paper that is given here. Grade 1 paper in Japan is given for advanced level here in Sri Lanka. So now I had no problem whatsoever in deciding, okay, I'm going to, struck off Sinhala and I'm going to take Japanese. Other 3 subjects remain the same: political science, logic, and economics. Now on the day that I sat the exam, of course there might have been other candidates elsewhere, but in the center where I sat my exam in Kandy, I was the only candidate. And there were 2 lady supervisors. And the 3-hour paper, I managed to finish within 40 minutes because it was so elementary. It was so easy. And I couldn't bother to stay back for 3 hours. So after 40 minutes, I got up and walked up to the supervising lady and handed over my answer script. And I still recall the words she told me. She told me, "Oka thamai lamaya bari dewal karanna epa kiyanne." She thought that I have messed up. But when the results were out, I had an A for Japanese, and I had 261 marks, which was sufficient at that time to enter university. Now, I received a letter after about 1 year from the university saying that I have a seat in the university, but the university was closed. Right? All the education institutes at that time, because of the JVP insurrection, I should say almost all the higher education institutes were closed. Even the Open University was closed. It was not open. So the only institute that conducted their academic activities was the Sri Lanka Law College. So now, once again, not wanting to be a vagabond, when you're young, you always try to keep yourself occupied. So I sat the law entrance exam, and when I went to get the application to sit the law entrance exam, the people at the counter wanted to know my subjects at advanced level. I said political science, economics, logic, and Japanese. The moment I told Japanese, the person in the counter said, no, you can't do the law entrance exam. And he told me, "Oy natung sangeetha karala illa, neethiya karanna bෑ." But I said, Japanese is neither natung nor sangeetha, right? So why not give me an opportunity? And the other three subjects, logic, economics, and political science, has some nexus to law. So why not allow me? He said, in that case, you will have to write to the Council of Legal Education, which I did. And I was lucky. That year, they approved a few more subjects, maybe because of the appeals that we made. They changed the entry criteria. The subjects, they accepted Japanese also as a subject. And that is how I became an attorney at law by an accident. So now, of course, when the university started their academic work, I wanted to specialize in English. But the university said, no, you can do languages, but you can't specialize in English because you have not done English for your advanced level. Then one fine day, I met the head of the department of the English faculty, and he was telling me, every year I'm expecting about 25 students for my faculty, but I get only about 13 to 14. So I told him, in that case, why don't you allow a person who's keen to major in English? Why don't you, because he's not taking the seat of another. Then he said, I will have to, you give me in writing your request, I will have to take it up with the University Senate and then decide. And the University Senate was kind enough, but of course with a condition, I had to offer English as a subject for my GAQ. It was compulsory, and I had to have something over B+, which I did. So that way I managed to clear my path to specialize in English. Now all the while attending lectures and at law college and at the university, my samples were lying. I'm from Gampa, Orutota Gampa, and it was lying somewhere in my house. One fine day, I dismantled one of these samples. Right? I dismantled one of these samples. And I wrote on a piece of paper as to what it is made of. The material. There were connectors, there were wires, there were tapes, and every component had a small serial number which you could see through a magnifying glass. And I wrote these numbers as well. And I had some friends working for Sri Lankan, Air Lanka at that time, and I got this material procured from Singapore. And when this material came, I did not have a spec, I did not have a drawing. But anyone who has eyes could see. So could I. So I matched the sample that was before me, the two samples that I did not dismantle, and I tried to do the identical thing. I made few samples, about 10 samples, and dispatched it to the person who took me around Toyota, explaining the process to me. No reply. After about 3 months, I repeated the process. I sent samples once again. No reply. And within a year, maybe I sent him samples 4 times without any success. So being inquisitive as to what is happening to my samples, I had his number, since I had his business card. I phoned him to find out as to what is happening to my samples. And then he told me, I told you on the very first day, don't ever try this. This is a critical component. This is something that we will never impart to another country. So don't ever try this. And if I tell you that I got encouraged by these words, it is not true. As a human being, you get discouraged. There are times that you fall. But the greatness is getting back on your feet. So now, for some reason, I do not know. Maybe that is the entrepreneur in you. After a few months, I started sending samples again to the same person. Once again, this process continued for about 1 year. And again, that is now after 2 years, I phoned him. And by this time, he has been promoted to middle management at Toyota. And he told me, you are the craziest guy I have seen. Right? I told you on the very first day, don't try this. Then I said, can you please tell me as to at least what is happening to my samples? Then he told me, when we see the sender's address as yours, we don't even bother to open it. We straight away throw it to the dustbin because time is more valuable. We don't have time to take a look at your samples. And also he told me, you have to understand that a company like Toyota will not engage in business with a virtual non-entity like you. Right? You are hardly heard of, even your country, for that matter. So therefore, don't ever try this. And you have to understand that Toyota is not a manufacturing plant, we are an assembly plant. Although we do certain amount of manufacturing internally to solve our lead time problems, there are suppliers who are licensed suppliers within the country who supply this component to us. If at all, you should talk to them and not Toyota direct. You have to understand this. Then, out of patience, I told him, in that case, can you send me the names of a few companies that is supplying this impact sensor to Toyota? He was kind enough to fax me. By that time, I had a fax machine at home. He was kind enough to fax me the names of 10 companies and their contact numbers who are manufacturing the impact sensor for the airbag. What I did was procured material again and made 10 samples each for all the 10 companies and dispatched to all 10. No reply. And this continued for another year without any success. One fine day when I returned home after my lectures, there was a long fax. I say long fax because it is not the plain paper fax that you get today. It was the fax roll. And the red line indicated that the fax has consumed almost the entire roll, fax roll. And when I cut it into pages, it was 32 pages. One company has replied saying, we received the 10 samples that you sent us. Out of the 10 samples that you sent us, 2 can be accepted, are in the accepted level. 8 are defects. And following is a defect analysis report. And it was 32 comprehensive, 32-page report. Now, I was a very happy man because at least someone has taken a look at the samples that I sent. And I studied and tried to avert all the mistakes that I have done. Then I did 100 and dispatched. This time the quality was okay. I did 1,000. It was now domestically doing at Gampa, Orutota, at my residence. And this 1,000, within about 2 months, they want to know whether I could do 10,000. Right? So when I was doing 1,000, it was a few, carton boxes that were coming, materials coming in few boxes. But when it came to 10,000 sensors, it was a few pellets. Of course, they were still loose cargo, but a few pellets. Now, my mother is a trim and proper housekeeper. Now, she was getting worried. She was asking me, "Puta, mukadda me gayakda nathna karmansa shala." Right? But now this was in the ascending. So I knew that now If they want me to increase to 50,000 or 100,000, I cannot do it as a domestic industry anymore. Now I got to do something about it. They say that entrepreneurs are risk takers, but I don't agree with that. I wanted to avoid all the risks available in this. So therefore, I did not want to, employ people and start a process of my own. Because by that time, I had studied industrial law at law college, and I knew if Japan is going to stop my orders tomorrow, the compensation that I would have to pay, even by selling your private property. So I did not want to take that risk. So I went to some existing companies in the country that were into electronics. And I told them, I have something like this. Can I get this done in one of your processes? So everyone wanted to know as to how much I would pay them. But one company that was situated in Homagama, owned by one Mr. Siris Samarakodi, after visiting so many companies, my experience was that they want to know as to how much I would pay. So my first question to Mr. Samarakodi when I met him was, now I have a product like this, how much do you want me to pay you to get this done in one of your processes? But he was a thorough gentleman. He said, now this is a product that you are still at the trial stage. You have not succeeded as yet. So I have got some American orders cancelled and there is some idling labor. So you can get one of these processors and get this product done. And if you are successful one day, then we'll talk of the modalities as to how we are going to share profits. You can get this done. And at that time, SJ Electromag was a presidential, they had won consecutive awards, presidential export awards and so on, in the extra large category. So they were supplying to Pharonix, USA and so on. So they had that quality mindset. So I had no problem with defects. And this 10,000 within 3 years went up to 300,000 sensors for a month. Now it was bringing in a lot of revenue to the company, and their American orders were declining, and I was the breadwinner of the company, and they made me director of the company. Now in this whole thing, now I was very comfortable. I completed my studies at the university, then I took oaths as an attorney. Everything was fine. Now I was getting 10% of the invoice value from the 300,000 sensors that was manufactured at SJ Electromag. Now I was in the comfort zone, the most dangerous zone. Most people don't grow beyond that. But now I was thinking, now there is a huge risk in this entire operation. Now the Japanese, they send the material by container cargo. I do the value addition here and reship it to Japan. If the Japanese want to stop business with me, they just have to retrieve one step. That is to stop sending material on the next shipment. So my business is over. So now I wanted to get a firmer commitment from them. Because to start from A to Z, it was just a small value addition that we were doing here. But to get all the machinery and to do the product A to Z as we are doing now, the capital required was $8 million US, which I did not have. Had I had $8 million US at that time, I wouldn't have started this business at all. So whenever also you have to remember, when you do business with the Japanese, your physical presence in their country is very important. Faxes and emails are not going to replace your physical presence. So every 2 months, I became a visitor to Japan. Just a courtesy, not meetings or anything, but you just go there, play golf with them, go fishing with them, do what they like, and try to create a relationship. The relationship comes first when you do business with the Japanese. So I was a frequent visitor. So whenever I went there, I saw the 300,000 sensors that I sent to Japan, it is entirely checked again. They inspect 100%, not a random one, 100% before sending it to the end users. So once again, there are about 100 people employed for this purpose. So I suggested to them, by what you pay them, 100 people here, you can run a company in Sri Lanka for years, right? Because their salary is average is about 300,000 Sri Lankan rupees. So I said, you can run a company in Sri Lanka with this money for years. So why don't you start this process in Sri Lanka? Then one Mr. Ito, he was the owner of the company which I was supplying. Mr. Ito told me, no, we are very happy with the present system. So just continue to do the way you are doing things. Now, as I told you, now I go to Japan at least 6 times a year. And the chairman of the company that I was supplying this component, Ito Spring Company, the chairman of that company, Mr. Ito, used to come to Sri Lanka at least twice a year. So when he comes to Sri Lanka, he stays here for 1 week. And he has the same routine schedule. He goes to ST Electromac, take a look at the process. Then if he wants to go to Kandy or Nureli, he go there and play some golf. And on the day that he takes the flight back to Narita, Sri Lankan Air flight to Narita, he does some shopping. We had the Ginza Hosen Japanese restaurant at Hilton. We go there and have a Japanese meal. And then he rests for a while. Flight is around 11 o'clock. We leave the hotel around 8 o'clock to be on time. It is one of these days that he was in Sri Lanka and he was to leave, that the Katnayak airport was attacked by the terrorists. Now I was getting very nervous because now he was staying at Galadari and all the channels, Rupavahini, Sirasa, all the channels were giving a live coverage of the attack that was going inside the airport and the operations that were going inside the airport. Now I knew it will have a very negative impact for my business if this gentleman see these visuals. So I had my friends at Galadari, I phoned them and gave them the room number and told them, please disconnect the television of this gentleman's room, which they obliged. Because I wanted to keep this news away from him. But lucky for me, there was no curfew in Colombo on that day. So we could get about our usual business. We could go to Ginza Hosen, buy some tea, and so on. But now I was getting very nervous because all the flights were cancelled. But I was once again lucky. Although all the flights were cancelled, the Sri Lankan air flight to Narita was on schedule. For the reason, there was a VVIP who had arrived and who had to report to their National Diet building, that is their parliament, the next day. So the flight was under tight security. The Sri Lankan air flight was on schedule. Now, when I took him to the airport, I had a friend from the Air Force, one Mr. Kishan Nehampat, and I told Kishan, I'm coming to the airport with one of my a VVIP to me, so please try to take him to the aircraft without him feeling the impact of what is going on. Because I learned from Kishan that still there are a few terrorists on the ceiling and the operations were on, although this flight was on schedule. So when I took him to Mr. Ito to the airport, there were about 6 personnel to receive me from the Air Force. They wanted to know, there was tight security. Are you Mr. Pallewatta? I said, yes. Okay, your guests can come with us. They opened the boot of the vehicle and they took the bags out. And this was very unusual. It was not the usual procedure. And Mr. Ito was worried, visibly worried. He wanted to know what is happening. I said, don't worry. This is how my countrymen treat me now. In a lighter way. And he was whisked away to the aircraft. And until he left Sri Lanka, he did not know that he was passing through an airport that was under terrorist attack. He would have resolved never to return. But of course he got to know through the media once he returned to Japan. But now he was in his safe zone, in his own country. Now the impact was different. It was just a news now. But a sad thing happened. He summoned a meeting. He said in September, in August he told me, in September we have to have a meeting. And his voice was rather serious. I knew that it was going to come to an end. Because most of you might have been young or not born yet to understand what we went through at that time. All the big insurance underwriters, like the Lloyds, after this attack, they imposed a huge levy for the vessels that was entering Colombo port. And once paying this, it was not feasible to do any international business. So they tried to bully us that way. Now, the meeting was scheduled for the 12th September. Now, as I told you, since I was a frequent visitor, by that time I had purchased a house in Nagoya. And that is where I stay, even now when I go. So now I was watching TV. It was around 9 o'clock in the night. I was a very sad man, I knew. Although they did not communicate the agenda to me, it was in the air. It was obvious. They were going to tell me that it is not feasible doing business with Sri Lanka. Sorry, we have to stop this. Japanese are the gentlemen they are. They will not stop a business with you business relationship by not picking up the phone, by not answering your mails. They will not stop it that way. They will have a meeting. They will tell their part of the story. For these reasons, we cannot go forward. And if we sever our connections at this point, what are the liabilities that would incur upon you? And how can we help you to overcome them? They will not leave you at a minus state. They will help you. So I knew this was the agenda. And I was watching TV around 9 o'clock. And then, it is then that the Twin Towers of USA were attacked. Right? The Twin Towers were attacked by Al-Qaeda. Now, after 5 minutes, I'm not happy at all for the catastrophe, for the lives lost in this entire incident. I'm not happy at all. But after 5 minutes, I realized that my problem has been resolved. Next day, the meeting, usually Japanese, they start the meeting on the dot and they move the agenda very fast. But this meeting never started because everyone had the daily newspapers like Asahi, Yomiuri in their hands. Every paper's cover page had photographs on aircraft hitting the buildings and the buildings collapsing and so on. Because of this incident, the agenda has become obsolete because of one incident. Because now they cannot single out Sri Lanka and say, Sri Lanka is a dangerous place to travel, dangerous place to do business with. Because of this incident, because I remember the day prior to this incident, Sri Lanka was the only country marked in red and given a travel advisory to all the countries by their embassies not to travel to this country. Even Somalia was not marked red, only Sri Lanka. But because of this incident, everything changed. And then the meeting did not start. And Mr. Ito, the chairman who was in the chair, he said, we will just see what our gentleman from Sri Lanka has to say. So there was a huge world map in the background of the boardroom. So I walked up to the world map and I said, just 48 hours ago, my country was marked red on this map. And you tell me today which country I should not mark red, right? Everyone had a big laugh. My order was not cancelled. I came to Sri Lanka with a lighter heart. And then, after a few months, I received a call from Mr. Ito saying, I am ready to come to your country and invest, look for a land. And as I told you, I'm from Gampa. Both Katunayaka and Biagama zones are equally close. But when I came to Biagama, I realized less congestion. So I looked for a bare land here. And then the moment the news broke that there was a Japanese investment going to come to Sri Lanka, all the bankers were after me. They said, we can fund half of the project. And I communicated to Mr. Ito. I told you don't have to bring the entire $8 million. Half can be financed from the local, you can raise it from the local banks. And he said, no, your country is interested in me coming to your country because of the money that I bring in. So why should I bring half? I will bring the full. So he brought, it was a greenfield investment. He brought the entire $8 million and invested. And the first 50 million, 500 lakhs, in fact, he remitted to my personal account. Although being an attorney, I did not know you have to first get the register a company, get BOI status, and it should come to the account of the company. But of course, it was bona fide. I audited the 50 million. I should have easily disappeared with that 50 million. It was a huge amount of money for me. But in my life, honesty is best policy. Sri Lanka would have lost a great investment had I done that. I did not do that. So the entire moral of this story is that success does not happen overnight. Right? The greatness is not in not falling at all, but getting up every time that you fall. Right? Today, unless there wouldn't have been, because $38 million turnover is something huge to this country. It wouldn't have been had I given up at one of the stages. You take my advanced level, I failed the first time. When I entered the university, they said, no, you can't major in English. When I went to law college to get the application, they said, no, you can't do law. Every time there was a negative answer, but I never took no for an answer. So the message that I want to inculcate in the minds of you young people, who's the future of our country, is that success, once again I'm telling you, I'm highlighting, success does not happen overnight. And remember, there is no straight line to success. There is no straight line to success. There will be hiccups. There will be ups and downs. Take, for example, the ECG. The straight line, what will that indicate? It will indicate that you are no more. But ups and downs will indicate that you are alive. Right? And remember, if you have a great idea, pursue that idea. Don't seek too many opinions. Right? If you have the most brilliant idea in the world, and if you wish to lose it, put it to a committee. Put it to a committee. You will never get it back. Right? So if you are confident of the idea, because as I told you, when I embarked on my journey, that is what I was told. So, you know, an egg, when it's pressurized from the outside and it breaks, life ends. But when an egg is pressurized from the inside and it breaks, life begins. So all great things happen from within the individual. So that is the message that I want to inculcate to you in your minds, young minds. And also remember, as I told you at the beginning, when you try to do something different, when you try to do something innovative, when you try to get an innovative idea off ground, people will disagree with you. They will laugh at you. They will ridicule you. If possible, they will try to fight with you. But then you win.